How to Talk Dirty and Influence People by Lenny Bruce. Chapter 4. I volunteered for the Navy in 1942. I was 5'2", weighed 120 pounds, and had a heavy beard that needed removing about once every 6 months. One day I was standing at 90 Church Street in downtown New York City, literally in the hands of a doctor who was telling me to cough, that universal experience which every male who gets caught in a draft undergoes. The Navy taught me a sterile sense of cleanliness, punctuality, and gave me the security of belonging. For the first time, I was able to relate to my fellow man. My first relative was Artie Shaw. We took boot training together in Newport, Rhode Island. During that 21-day incubation period, the excitement of war was dwarfed by, "Artie Shaw is here." Artie Shaw. Begin the beguine night and day. Dave Tuff, Max Kaminsky, Lena Turner, Kathleen Windsor, Artie Shaw, Orpheus, Music and Love, and me. We were brothers in blue. Of course I never saw him, but it was enough for me that he was there. 18 years later, I got the same gratification from those magic words, "Artie Shaw is here," when the owner of the Blue Angel Cafe whispered it to me before I went on stage. Artie Shaw is here. How just, how natural. We were in the war together. He had enlisted as an apprentice seaman. He could have gone in a dozen other ways, like Glenn Miller, for example, with commission in clarinet. But he made it as an apprentice seaman, which was a silly-ass thing to do. As it turned out, he had a much rougher time in service than I did. He either got an over-solicitous, "This is Artie Shaw, Captain Auden. He has agreed to give you that autographed picture of himself for Admiral Nimitz," or more often, "Look, pretty boy, you're not in Hollywood now. There ain't no butlers around here." Artie Shaw would have been glad to have been as anonymous as I was then, an ordinary seaman with a serial number, wanting to fight for his country. Even as a kid, I was hip that 80% of the guys that go for civil service pension security have no balls for the scuffle outside. I am not knocking the desire for security. We're all kind of scared and would like to be sitting under the kitchen sink picking at the linoleum. But it really bugged Shaw. He put in an urgent request for a transfer to the Mediterranean. We were all anxious to go and be blessed by priests and rabbis, thereby giving us the okay to kill the enemy. Those dirty, pregnant Japanese women who stood in the silent army, like Italian mothers standing over the boiling pots of spaghetti, the Jewish mothers slaving over pots of chicken soup, women unconcerned with politics, all they know is that 49 cents a pound for chopped meat is ridiculous. Those dirty Jap babies crawling on the floor, amused by the magic of a cat, his purr, his switching tail. Those dirty Japs we hated, who now fill the windows of American stores with cameras. Those dirty Japs that knocked up the portable radio industry. Where the hell was that syndicated Nostradamus and as Criswell predicts then? Now there are no more dirty Japs. There are dirty commies. And we run out of them, they'll just be dirty dirt and dirty mud. Then we'll eat the mud and Pearl Buck will write a book about it. By that time, the few hippies who discovered that it's the earth which is dirty will have made it to the moon for the Miss Missile contest. On a cruel triple-rur, snow-cold gray winter morning at Coddington Point, Rhode Island, Artie Shaw and 20-odd other sailors sat in the fetal position with their red eyes and chapped thighs, waiting for chow to blow. A chief petty officer came in and told Artie that a lieutenant commander was outside the barracks and wanted to see him immediately. Shaw was sure that this was his transfer. He marched out with his Don Winslow snap, the sailors nervously peeking through the barracks window. When you're in boot camp, a lieutenant commander might as well be the president. Shaw was understandably nervous as the lieutenant commander reached out his hand saying, "Put her there, Artie," and then said 14 words that had more impact than Roosevelt's December 7th, a day that will live in infamy speech. The lieutenant commander looked Shaw in the eye and said, "I just wanted to shake the hand that patted the ass of Lena Turner." It was in the Navy that I had my first love affair, a one-night stand with Louise, the kind of chick that makes an elevator operator feel possessed of great control because it went up 18 floors and didn't rip off her dress. Louise was 28 when I met her. Her father and mother had just died, and she and her brother inherited the business, a 13 by 13-foot combination Italian-American grocery and soda fountain, with living quarters in the back. Her brothers took care of the store during the day, and she worked there at night so he could go to CCNY. Her husband was a private in the U.S. infantry, stationed in Iceland for the duration. I walked into the store in white hat, dress blue uniforms, and my Endicott Johnson shoes, so new they slipped on cement. I was announced by the little tin bell, the candy store burglar alarm. Behind the counter stood Luis. Doctors who have probed, cut, sewn, and rubber gloved so many women that it had become a task would get shaken by a Luis. Your adenoids seem quite normal. Perhaps the trouble is respiratory. Unbutton your blouse a moment, and we'll give a listen to the old ticker. There's quite a bit of flu going around, and here, oh God, oh merciful mother of God, what a body. You're so tan and yet so white. Please, may I touch you? Not as a doctor. Let me unbutton my shirt and feel you close to me. Please don't push me away. Here, let me, please. Oh God, I'm losing my mind. Let me latch the door. Let me just kiss it. That's all I want to. Oh, please, 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 just touch it. Just look at it. I do respect you. I just can't catch my goddamn breath. With $8 hidden in my shoe and $1 in my hand, I walked up to the counter and spoke with a jaded enough tone so that Luis would know that I'd been around. Pepsi, please, and a bag of potato chips. She ripped the staple chips away from the cardboard. When she spoke, her words stunned me. I never expected a woman who looked like that to talk that way to a bon vivant such as I. How the hell did you get gum in your hair? She asked. The guy who sleeps in the bunk above me stuck it on the edge of my rack. I thought I got it out. Come here. I got some benzene. It'll take it out. I followed her through the blue rayon portals that separated the store from her home. I sat on a soda box and watched her rumble through the medicine cabinet, which was a cardboard carton under her bed. She soaked the rag and stood over me, gently kneading the chewing gum from my hair. Her thighs, with the good life scent of the white dove, pressed weightlessly against my cheek. The gum was long gone, and my first love was nurtured in a setting of Medaglia d'Oro coffee, Ace Combs, and Progresso tomato puree. I wonder if any Chilean chicle worker ever dreamt of the delicious fruit that I received from the byproduct of his labor. I was assigned to a light cruiser, the USS Brooklyn. Me, Leonard Alfred Schneider, on the deck of a warship bound for North Africa, along with 1,300 other men and enough munitions to bring a man-made earthquake to Ain el-Turk, Bizerte, and Algiers, which was to be followed after the war by a socio-political earthquake, for we were blasting more than enemy breastworks. We were shaking loose the veils from shadowed Muslim faces and the gold from their front teeth. I had 2 battle stations, one on a 1.1 gun, and my watch was on a 5-inch deck gun. A cannon in the Navy is always called a gun. 5 in the morning, revive. 5:10, topside. Wash down the decks and do paint work. 7 o'clock, secure. 7:30 to 8, chow. Prunes, beans, cornbread, cold cuts, Waldorf salad, coffee. 8 o'clock, turn 2. Painting, chipping, scraping, ammunition, working, party. 12 o'clock, chow. Braised beef, dehydrated potatoes, spinach, coffee, cake with icing. 1 o'clock, work. 2:45, attack by enemy planes. Man your battle stations, fight with planes. I could use Navy time, 0600, etc., but I had it elevated to the idiomatic group. Look out the window and see who it is on the left side of the boat. The secure from battle may be at 8 p.m. Secure at sea, ammunition, working party. Replace expended ammunition. Quick scrub down, 12:30, hit the sack. I never got more than 4.5 hours sleep a night in 3 years. Blood and salt water mixed together looks blue. 8 men followed by 12, then by about 40 more, floated gracefully by the bow of the USS Brooklyn. These dead Air Force men that just a few months ago were saying, "What do you want, high test or regular? Did you get my pants out of the cleaner, sweetheart? They'll never get me. My uncle is an alderman. Now listen, Vera. I'm going to put all my stuff in these cardboard boxes, and I'm going to lock them in that closet back of the den. Please don't let anyone touch them. And don't just say yes to me. I don't want anyone, do you understand, anyone fooling around with my stuff. His stuff, my stuff. Everyone was worrying about their stuff, their papers, their possessions. The bodies continued to float by, their heads bumping the starboard side. Seeing those pitiful, fresh dead bodies, I knew then what a mockery of life the materialistic concept is. After they got the telegram, someone would go through his stuff and try to figure out why in the world he wanted all that stuff. The stuff that he kept so nice would eventually be thrown out of the basement, for the stuff would now be crap. Hey, throw this crap out of here. Chapter 5. Standing on the deck of a warship in battle, you get a good look at the competitive aspect of life carried to its extreme. Our society is based on competition. If it isn't impressed upon you at home with the scramble for love between brothers and sisters, they really lay it down to you in school, in numbers any child can understand. That's what grading is. You bring home 100% and your mother hugs you and your father pats you on the back. The teachers beam at you, but not your schoolmates. They know you're in competition with you, and if you get a high percentage, they must get a lower one. Everybody wants love and acceptance, and he soon learns that one way to get it is by getting higher marks than the other fellow. In essence, you are gratified by your schoolmates' failures. We take this with us into adulthood. Just look at the business world. So my first instinct in the structure of economic and critical success is to want Mort Saul, Jonathan Winters, Shelley Berman, etc., my quote-unquote schoolmates, to bomb. If I bring in a bigger gross at a cafe or a concert than Mort does at the same place, I've brought home a good report card. I struggle with this part of me which is inhumane, and now, perhaps this can be explained by the fact that I am making enough money to afford to be magnanimous about it. I genuinely rejoice in another's success. I would like to believe that if I were still scuffling and Mort was doing well, I would still be happy for him. But I wonder. I am happy he's doing well, but not better than me. The USS Brooklyn was a big ship, and she was considered quite a danger and a nuisance by the enemy. At night, the enemy planes, unless they had inside information, could only tell what they were bombing by the firepower that was thrown at them. If they received nothing but 20mm and 40s, they would assume that the largest craft below was a DE or some other small craft that carried only small arms. We were trapped in a strange bind. We were the only heavy power in the area, but if we threw up our big stuff, our 5-inch guns, they would know immediately that we were a cruiser, and then they would send for assistance and do us in. When general quarters sounded at sea, it was usually an E-boat or a submarine. I loved this because I wasn't as afraid of being killed in battle as I was of being bored. Lucky for me that the guys in power at the time knew the real danger and kept me occupied. I was grateful, but it was still pretty exhausting, fighting 60 hours without securing from battle stations. Through 3 years and 4 major invasions, Anzio, Salerno, Sicily, southern France, I was a shell passer with a heavy helmet that was lined with a smelly foam rubber. 2 years of sleeping in a hammock, then graduating to a lower bunk. 3 years of hearing, "Now hear this," till I didn't want to hear it ever again. 3 years of being awakened by a buzzer that made the sound that a gigantic goose would, laying an egg the size of a Goodyear blimp. Gonk, 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 gonk. That was the bass line. The boatswain's whistle and the trumpets just lacked a rhythm section to keep them from being real hard swingers. The impersonal voice would boom over the speaker. "All men man your battle stations. Secure all hatches. The smoking lamp is out." I'd scramble up the ladder just in time to get my helmet knocked off and my nose bloodied from the concussion vacuum created in the hatch cove. We would be bottled up in Naples Harbor, the Germans bombing and strafing every ship in the bay. It was blind man's buff. As a child, I loved confusion. A freezing blizzard that would stop all traffic and mail, toilets that would get stopped up and overflow and run down the halls, electrical failures, anything that would stop the flow and make it back up and find a new direction. Confusion was entertainment for me. While the war was on, the alternation of routine and confusion sustained my interest, but then it was over, and I wanted out. I had been a good sailor with a sterling record of consistent performance, but I wasn't a mensch. However, I didn't put the Navy through any red tape coming in, so I felt that they should permit me to exit with the same courtesy. A lot of guys tried to get out during the war, and I considered that cowardly, but I rationalized my schemes with, why not? The war is over. But how does one go about shooting his toes off with an oar? We lay at anchor in the Bay of Naples, and the night closed in around me. I had to get out, and get out fast. Other guys had gone wacky, some on purpose, and the only ones that got out were those who could just sit and say no to everything. They got out, but with a dishonorable discharge, and by the time they were processed, it was 6 months in the brig, a trial, and such a hard time that it wasn't worth it. I had to think. You spend your whole life thinking and worrying about the deposit bottles and where to cash them. That night it seemed that getting out of the Navy, or even getting out of the Mediterranean was years away. I wondered who was buying Mima her Vaseline. I closed my eyes in the pitch black night, and then, all of a sudden, the heavens seemed to light up like Times Square. For a moment, I thought, oh, I don't have to worry anymore. My problem has solved itself. I won't have to pretend. I recalled previous flashes on my optic nerves. I am sitting at the Silver Dollar Bar in Boston, next to a girl with chipped, bitten-off painted fingernails and lipstick on her teeth. We are having our picture taken by the nightclub photographer. Flash! The first time I ever saw a flashlight, my cousin Stanley was sticking it in his mouth, making his cheeks all red. Magic lights. The flash of lightning on choppy Long Island Sound as my Uncle Bill pulls in a flounder. Fireflies through the window screens. The lights in the Bay of Naples kept getting brighter and brighter. I wondered for an instant, is this the spiritual illumination I've read about? Will I see the Virgin of Fatima appear next? My vision cleared, and simultaneously I felt a smothering wave of factory heat, hotter than all the asphalt roads in Arizona put together. Mount Vesuvius had erupted for the first time in centuries. Mount Vesuvius, the earth that bore the tree, that bore the fruit, that fed man. The carbon process, each of us one molecule in the vast universe. The earth that saw man destroy his competitor. The earth that saw Italians killed. Italians, the Venetians, the brilliant colorists. The Italians that would soon clothe Miles Davis. The earth saw this and vomited that night in Naples. In the Army, you can get out if you're a whack. Why couldn't you get out of the Navy if you were a wave? Down in my bunk, I had a copy of Psychopathia Sexualis by Krafft Ebing. There it was. A transvestite is a nut who likes to get dressed up in women's clothing. He may never engage in homosexual practice or do anything else antisocial. He's completely harmless. But obviously he would be an inconvenience to the Navy, where they like to keep everything organized by having everyone dress alike. I figured that if I could demonstrate to the Navy that I still had a great deal of patriotism and loyalty to the uniform, the old esprit de corps, rather than indulging myself with the obvious sort of feather boa negligee and gold lame mule's drag outfit, then maybe instead of booting me out, they'd open the door politely and escort me out like an officer and a lady. Swanson, one of my shipmates, could sew as well as a girl. He was also a beer addict. He'd do anything for a bottle of beer. In North Africa, Gibraltar, Malta, Corsica, Sicily, wherever we made port, they'd given us chits that entitled us to so much beer. I didn't drink beer, and I saved all my chits. Along with these, I won some gambling, and I also received quite a few for standing watch for different guys. I had enough beer chits to play Scrooge at an AA Christmas show. I gave my chits to Swanson, and his fingers flew to the task. The way he threw himself into his work made me wonder about him. With the pleats, the shields, everything, he made me a lieutenant. For a while, it was just scuttlebutt that a wave was seen promenading forward at the forecastle during the midnight watch. A number of guys who saw it didn't report it out of fear that they'd be given a Section 8 themselves. Finally, one night, I was doing my nautical Lady Macbeth when 4 guys, including the chief master-at-arms, jumped me. I yelled, "Masher!" 4 naval psychiatrists worked me over at Newport Naval Hospital. First officer: Lenny, have you ever actively engaged in any homosexual practice? Lenny: No, sir. An active homosexual is one who does the doing, and the passive is one who just lies back. In other words, if you were a kid and you were hitchhiking, and some faggot came on with you and let him do whatever his do was, he was an active homosexual because he performed a sexual act with someone of the same sex. And you are a passive homosexual if you allowed any of this to happen. You'll never see this in an AAA driving manual, but that's the way it is. Do you enjoy the company of women? Said the second officer. Lenny: Yes, sir. Third officer: Do you enjoy having intercourse with women? Lenny: Yes, sir. Fourth officer: Do you enjoy wearing women's clothing? Lenny: Sometimes. All 4: When is that? Lenny: When they fit. I stuck to my story and they finally gave up, only it didn't work out the way I had figured it. They drew up an undesirable discharge. At the last minute, though, this does sound like a fairy tale, doesn't it? The Red Cross sent an attorney who reviewed the case and saw that the whole thing was ridiculous. There were no charges against me. The entire division was questioned, and when it was ascertained that I had a good credit rating and virility, based upon paid-up accounts and numerous Neapolitan bordellos, I received an honorable discharge. So everything worked out all right, except they took away my Waves uniform. It bugged me because I wanted to have it as a sort of keepsake of the war. I wouldn't even wear it, naturally, except maybe on Halloween.